What if humans could taste colors and see flavors? This question comes from neuroscientist Dr. Maya Patel, who asks, if human sensory perception suddenly crossed over so that people could literally taste colors with their tongues and see flavors as visual patterns in the air, how would this fundamental change in consciousness transform art, cuisine, language, and human understanding of reality? Let's imagine it's a peaceful Sunday morning when people worldwide wake up experiencing impossible sensations. A woman looks at her red coffee mug and suddenly tastes strawberries on her tongue. A child stares at blue sky and experiences the flavor of mint flooding his mouth. Meanwhile, when people eat breakfast, they begin seeing extraordinary visual displays. Orange juice creates brilliant golden spirals in the air, while toast generates warm brown geometric patterns that dance before their eyes. The immediate confusion would be overwhelming. Hospitals would be flooded with people convinced they're having neurological breakdowns as they taste purple lampshades and see the flavor of chocolate as floating brown clouds. Emergency rooms would struggle to understand patients describing the bitter taste of yellow traffic lights and seeing the sour flavor of lemonade as green zigzag patterns. Within the first week, humanity would discover that this sensory crossover follows consistent patterns. Red always tastes like strawberries or cherries. Blue consistently produces mint or ocean-like flavors, while yellow generates citrus sensations. Similarly, sweet foods create warm, rounded visual patterns, while bitter flavors produce sharp, angular shapes that appear to hover in space around the person eating. The art world would undergo a complete revolution. Painters would need to consider not just the visual impact of their color choices, but the taste experiences they're creating for viewers. A red painting would literally make people taste berries while looking at it. Museums would need to post flavor warnings for visitors with food allergies, as viewing certain artworks could trigger genuine taste reactions that might be dangerous for some individuals. Restaurants would face unprecedented challenges and opportunities. Chefs would realize that the visual presentation of food now creates a double sensory experience. Diners would taste the colors of their plates and see the flavors of their meals as visual phenomena. A beautifully plated dish could become overwhelming as people experience both the intended flavors and the tastes generated by the colored garnishes and plate design. But the most profound changes would occur in human relationships and communication. People would discover that emotions have both taste and visual components when the crossover effect extends beyond simple colors and flavors. Looking at someone you love would generate sweet tastes, while anger would create bitter sensations and sharp red visual patterns. Human faces would begin generating subtle flavor experiences based on emotional expressions. Language would require complete restructuring. Describing experiences would become incredibly complex as every visual scene would need to include its taste components, and every meal would need description of its visual effects. Poetry and literature would evolve to capture this new dual sensory reality where reading about colors would make readers actually taste them. The most surprising discovery would come after several months of living with crossed senses. Children born after the sensory change would develop far more sophisticated pattern recognition and memory abilities than their parents. The constant sensory crossover would be training their brains to process multiple information streams simultaneously, creating enhanced cognitive abilities. Education would be revolutionized as teachers realize that students can now literally taste mathematical concepts when presented in color and see the flavors of different subjects. History lessons about ancient Rome could be presented in colors that taste like period-appropriate foods, while chemistry lessons would allow students to see molecular reactions as both visual and flavor experiences. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. After exactly 1 year of sensory crossover, neuroscientists would make a startling discovery. Brain scans would reveal that this isn't a medical condition or evolutionary change, it's the activation of dormant neural pathways that have always existed in human brains but were previously suppressed by an unknown neurochemical inhibitor. The shocking truth would emerge that humans originally evolved with crossed senses as our natural state. Archaeological analysis of ancient cave paintings would suddenly make sense when interpreted as both visual art and flavor maps. Ancient texts that seemed nonsensical would prove to be sophisticated sensory guides describing both the visual and taste experiences of their environments. Further investigation would reveal that the neurochemical inhibitor that had been suppressing human sensory crossover was artificially introduced to human brain chemistry thousands of years ago by an advanced civilization that needed humans to function as a more focused, less distracted species for a specific purpose. The final revelation would be that this advanced civilization was actually humanity's own future descendants who had traveled back in time to temporarily limit human sensory perception during a critical period in our development. They needed our ancestors to focus exclusively on toolmaking, agriculture, and technological advancement without the overwhelming distractions of tasting every color and seeing every flavor. Now that humanity had successfully developed sufficient technology and civilization, the future humans had released the inhibitor, restoring our species' natural sensory capabilities. The sensory crossover wasn't a strange new phenomenon, it was humanity returning to our original, more sophisticated way of experiencing reality. The day humans began tasting colors and seeing flavors would mark not a bizarre medical anomaly, but the restoration of our species' true perceptual abilities, revealing that our ancestors experienced a far richer and more complex sensory world than we ever imagined, and that we were finally evolved enough to handle the full spectrum of human consciousness without losing our focus on survival and progress.